a painting.
Yes.
Does the Bahamas look like in 2050?
Can we imagine it?
What does the Bahamas look like in 2075? Do we have anyone that can give us a picture? Because that, to me, is what leadership is about. Leadership is about being able to define the future so the present has hope.
Being able to define the future so the present has hope. And we need to be hopeful.
Nothing is more depressing than being able to see the present. And that's why you should never trust your eyes when you are a leader. You trust your vision. Because your vision and your eyes are completely different. Your eyes show you what is. Your vision shows you what could be.
Yeah.
I have a definition of leadership that I'd like for us to begin with. And, of course, I've had the privilege of working with millions of people over the last 30 years and being able to go into environments to help train leaders. And it's been a challenging job, but also a rewarding one, to see leaders apply the things that we teach them and then to see those results. Every single time I travel, I see people show me, here are the results of what we did with what you taught us last year or 5 years ago. We mentioned yesterday that leadership is really not about seeking followers. It's really about pursuing purpose. So I define leadership as the capacity to influence others through inspiration.
Through inspiration. That's the word of the day.
And that inspiration is generated by a vision the leader has. The vision is motivated by a passion and a purpose. And that purpose comes from a conviction that the leader has. And every word is important in this sentence. Leadership is the capacity to influence others through inspiration, generated by a passion, motivated by a vision, birthed by a conviction, which is produced by a purpose. Every word is important. But leadership actually begins from the bottom of that sentence. First, the leader must discover a sense of purpose. And that's a personal revelation of why you think you were born.
What's your purpose?
You should never take a leadership position because you're getting paid. You should take a leadership position because you want to pay your generation the debt you owe them. So true leaders never work for money. They found something more important. They found a sense of purpose that they owe humanity. That purpose is what produces a conviction. And conviction is key in leadership because conviction protects you from compromise. True leaders are born when a person discovers a conviction they're willing to die for. That conviction shows up in pictures. So we call it vision. Once you see the future of your convictions, once you see the actual vision in what I call technicolors, it becomes a vision. Then the vision creates a passion. And this is, to me, the most important thing in leadership, because passion is the decision or the desire that is stronger than death.
Passion?
Yes. You cannot be a true leader without passion. Passion is not finding something to live for. It's finding something to die for. So when a person sees a future that they believe is more important than the present, and they're willing to pursue it at all costs, including their own death, then a leader is born. That passion is what inspires other people. Now, you cannot lead people who you don't inspire. Inspiration is not manipulation. True leaders never manipulate people. If you got to threaten people to follow you, you're not a leader, you're a dictator. If you got to manipulate people to follow you, you're not a leader, you are a slickster.
Con man.
Con man, exactly. True leaders inspire people, and inspiration comes from your passion for what you believe in. All great leaders, you think about them. Nelson Mandela, he didn't go to prison really because of the people. He went to prison because of a conviction. And he was so convicted, his passion took him to prison. His willingness to die, the passion, inspired millions to follow him. Martin Luther King Jr., he never went looking for followers. He had a belief and a deep conviction about humanity and its value, that he saw the future. He's the one who said, I have a dream. I see little black boys and little white girls walking hand in hand down the streets of Alabama. Mm-hmm. I've been to the mountaintop. I've seen the promise. This guy was seeing things. Mm-hmm. True leaders do not see the present. They see the future. But what's more important, they believe the future more than they believe the present. And they're willing to go there at all cost. That produces passion. Passion inspires others. Once you inspire people, then they allow you to influence them. Influence is the key to leadership. It's like the currency that leaders use. People will follow you if you influence them by your passion, and therefore they give you their trust. Trust is the currency of leadership. You cannot follow someone who you don't trust.
I want to put a pin in there for a second so that we can really bring this home now. The thing is, I've got to ask you, what you're preaching and what you're talking about today and explaining and sharing is a universal philosophy, a universal concept that can be
leadership
anywhere in the world. I want to ask you to just pause for a second, since we are in the Bahamas and we are in a leadership crisis in the minds of many people, and ask you a question from your own observations and from your own talking points that I heard you on various radio shows, including on this show with your program, Living Effectively, that you say things all the time to your congregation and to the world at large that, you know, you are willing to die for what you believe in.
Absolutely.
That's what you say. You say that you believe and you have a passion for what you're doing. You said the other day you were called to do what you are doing and you wouldn't give it up for nothing in the world because you think that you found your purpose. This is what it's all about. I want to ask you this. Do we in the Bahamas, for the most part, since we're talking about the Bahamas, and this is germane to us, do you sense and feel and observe, have you observed, that we have this passion to perfect this art of leadership? Though some people believe that leaders are born and quite naturally they will just get to the top, as cream floats to the top. Do you see us in the Bahamas in all areas, all spheres, the church, civil society, the body politic, the judiciary? Do you see us as persons, individuals, who are hewing out a concept of the kind of leadership that you are talking about, the kind that would inspire, the kind that would make people be inspired to follow a particular leader because they have articulated, they have announced a vision? Do you get that? And I want you to be succinct with me on this because I think this is very, very important here in our discussions, because after all, we're talking about rebooting the Bahamas.
Yes.
And so we got to put this in context now. What do you see? What's been your observation, your critical analysis, if you can, as to what you have observed and how we are to be able to get out of it and to get on the right track if it has been in the negative?
It's difficult to be, first of all, a leader and a politician. And I think this is there is a tremendous stress between the two. It's almost like two forces that are rubbing against each other, because a politician has more to do with pleasing people. A leader has more to do with fulfilling a purpose. So if you're motivated by pleasing people, then you are really being led by the people. But if you discover a conviction and a purpose that you believe is noble, and I use that term noble intentionally, one that is in the best interest of humanity, and you're willing to lay your life down to fulfillment of that purpose, then that's leadership. And I think this is in the Bahamas. We are struggling between politics and leadership.
We use it interchangeably. But you're saying
they are not the same.
They're not the same.
For example, true leadership is finding a human cause that's worth sacrificing yourself for. How many people in leadership in our nation? I'm sure that there are some. I've observed a few. But the majority of people who claim to be leaders, they're not willing to sacrifice themselves to what they're talking about. For example, true leadership is born when you discover the problem in life you were born to solve. I am of the opinion and the conviction that every human being was born to solve a problem. And when you find that problem, you discover your life. Let me make a statement that was made 2,000 years ago. The statement says this: if you save your life, you will lose it. But if you lose your life for the sake of an assignment, you will save it. Think about the words.
Yeah.
If you are interested in preserving your life, then you'll never leave a mark in history. but you're willing to lose your life for the sake of other people, you will save your life. That means you will never die. Martin Luther King Jr. will never die. Nelson Mandela will never die. The men are dead, but they'll never die. Because when you lose your life for the sake of a cause for humanity, you literally never die. And we can go back and list a long list of people, Mother Teresa and Abraham Lincoln, these people who realized that they found a conviction that was more important than the people's popularity. In other words, put another statement here. True leadership is the personal commitment to sacrifice yourself for a public cause. Let me repeat that because this is important. True leadership is discovering a personal commitment for a public cause. That means true leaders never do things for themselves. It's to help others, to expand others, to improve others. This is why I keep repeating, true leaders do not really pursue power. They're pursuing empowering others. And so in our local context, we need to probably ask more questions than we have to try and find leaders. The question should be, do we have them? Do we have people in our country, in all professions, who are working because of a conviction or because of convenience?
Now, there you go. Then this is big.
Are they working because of popularity or because of a purpose they found? Are they working because of money, or are they working because of an assignment they feel that they were given in life? Are they working because they want legacy, or are they working because they believe that they were sent here to make a difference in the world? Are you working because you want to grow rich, or are you working because you want to enrich other people? The basic questions of leadership are very, very serious. And true leaders do not seek followers. Followers are attracted to true leaders' passion. Someone asked me, how do you measure a leader? My answer is, true leadership is not measured by how many people serve you.
But by how many
it's
people
measured by how many people you serve.
Understood.
So I like the definition of leadership given by the greatest man that ever lived. He says, the greatest among you is the one who serves everyone. Or the one who is the number one is the one who's the slave to everybody.
Now, of course, these are, again, universal concepts in the whole idea of leadership. But do when we come home, do we find that we have people who are thinking along those lines and pursuing this whole idea of leadership along those lines? Because what we do have, Dr. Monroe, are people who are in politics, who are in other parts of government and other areas of careers, who are doing things because they are being personally satisfied, or they are looking for a good financial reward, or they're trying to get ahead in life and have a comfortable little income that they can, a comfortable little life that they can just nicely live out and just be very quiet. You don't have, Dr. Monroe, in a time when we are in crisis, my friend. This is a time when this nation is in crisis. We have people who are just talking about concepts. We have people who are saying and complaining every day, man, we need a paradigm shift. We need to do something else. We need to try some new things. But everybody who is saying that, Dr. Monroe, is saying that we need to find another political party. So that's why I'm saying people equate leadership to politics all the time, and we use it all the time that way. I'm saying, how come we're not inspired by the fact that there are people, God had been good to us and deposited people in this country who have all those attributes that you're talking about, who have the passion, who want to serve people, who have a burning desire to do it. But there are many things in their way. And I'm saying to you, as people listening today, they're wondering, well, then who qualifies for leadership? Because it seems so idealistic. It seems, that, you've got to almost be perfect to fit this bill as a leader, a true leader. So I'm saying to you, what does that mean in the country today, considering that we have all these things that needs to be fixed? How do we galvanize? How do people internalize and find themselves as a leader, knowing what the circumstances are, but everybody at the same time playing it safe? Well, I don't want to get involved. I don't even want to call a talk show because, they may know my voice. And then, the next thing, and I ain't get my house. Then, I trying to get this loan. I just come home from school. I trying to build a house with me and the wife. And there are many excuses. But back in the day, Dr. Monroe, Lyndon Pinling and A.D. Han and all these guys who ended up in the area of politics, they came home. Paul Adley and many others.
And they were willing to lose
They
everything.
were willing to lose everything.
I think you just said it right. You said people are playing it safe. What I'm saying is that true leaders have no safety mechanisms. Their safety is their purpose, their passion.
Mm-hmm.
And today, I'm not here to identify leaders. I'm here to give you the criteria to measure whether we have them. Because we need leaders, for example, who can plan, leaders who can make tough decisions. We need leaders who can inspire and motivate other people by inspiring them by their passion. We need leaders who can respond to changing times and yet maintain their convictions. That's a tough one. We need leaders who have honorable character. Big word. And character is the key, because character is where you are so fixed that you are not willing to compromise because you believe in what you are convicted to believe in. I would think that we do have leaders in our nation, but many of them are afraid to emerge because the system discourages them. It's also true in the United States. Politics somehow is resistant to true leadership. And many true leaders are afraid to get involved in politics, because to get involved in politics, you almost got to compromise being yourself. You almost have to almost be an imitation of yourself. And we need to, hopefully, we'll see it soon, to see more leaders emerge. And I believe that there are people in the House of Assembly right now who are true leaders. And, you know, let me say a good word about crisis. Crisis is the perfect furnace for the forging of leaders.
I agree.
All great leaders emerge out of crisis. So if you say the Bahamas is in crisis, that's a perfect environment for true leaders to emerge.
Yet we have people who are timid and tentative, scared.
Yeah, and that's why a show like this is important, because I believe they're listening to us. And, you know, being able to step out and say, look, if I die, I die. But I'm going to go after life. I'm going to see if I can give life to people at the expense of my own. And this is what leadership really is about. It's about you not living for yourself, but living for other people.
But then again, a lot of people believe that they have to emerge in this whole sector of leadership through politics. I mean, couldn't somebody else, couldn't a private group of people decide that we have a serious migration problem, illegal aliens coming into the Bahamas?
Yes.
We have a serious bit of that. I mean, couldn't some person rise to the forefront who is perhaps even unknown to the body politic, who is perhaps even unknown to the church, just somebody who has this passion that we got to fix this, man. We've got to fix this problem. And then what's wrong with them, Dr. Monroe, deciding that they're going to put together a grouping, that they're going to begin moving between here and Haiti, where the major problem is with the migrants, and working themselves into a position where they can talk with the movers and shakers on that side, and they don't have to be in government. I mean, doesn't leadership call people to do that just like that? I mean, if it's inspired in their heart.
That's a good question, and let me answer you this way. There was a lady who was 4 feet 5 inches high. She was a high school teacher. She worked in the slums of Calcutta, India. Every day she went to her classroom to teach those kids. And on her way to her classroom, she had to step over sick people on the streets, lepers lying in the mud. She had to walk over people whose fingers were rotting off from leprosy. She had to brush flies from people's sores on the ground as she walked to classrooms. And by the time she got to her classroom, she was weeping. And she always became angry at what she saw on her way to her classroom. And she loved teaching, but what she saw was much more of a conviction for her, those people on the streets. And one day she decided, I'm going to stop teaching, and I'm going to feed those people, clean their sores, I'm going to help them. She went to her supervisor and says, look, I want to resign. And he said, why? She said, because the people on the streets outside around this school are dying in the streets. There are millions of them around this place. And he said, can one person save all these people from poverty and sickness and disease? She said, well, I guess not, but I can stop at the first one. So she took her last paycheck after resigning, went to a food stand, bought some fruit, went to the mud, knelt down among those people, and she began to feed them one at a time with her last paycheck. Her name was Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa was not a politician. She was not an attorney general. She was not an opposition leader. She was a high school teacher. But she became angry at something. And this is important for everyone to hear. Whatever you are angry at, you were born to solve.
So the outrage of all these things, we got many who can solve
This is my point. Yes. Your purpose in life is measured by your anger. I think the problem maybe is that we don't have enough angry people. Her anger caused her to resign a secure job. Her anger made her take her last paycheck and give it to the people.
To make a difference. Do
you know that woman ended up addressing the United Nations? She is the only teacher that we know in history that stood before the entire United Nations and rebuked them about their greed and lack of interest in poverty. She became a world leader and never became a politician. She changed the world as a teacher. Someone's listening to me right now driving home in your car. Maybe you are a teacher. Maybe you are a mechanic. Maybe you are an electrician. Perhaps you are a housewife. But every time you pass a certain environment, you become angry. If you keep complaining about corruption or about the youth, or you keep complaining about poverty, that could be an indicator that you were born to change that situation. That's why your anger will never leave you. Whatever you were born to solve will always make you angry. Martin Luther King was an angry man. Angry at what? Oppression, prejudice. Nelson Mandela was an angry man. He was angry at inequality and subjugation. Mother Teresa was angry. Abraham Lincoln was so angry at slavery that he said these words, I have said nothing but what I am willing to live by. And if it be the pleasure of the Almighty God, I'm willing to die by it. He was talking about setting the black people free from slavery. He was willing to die for it. These people found their anger. You yourself have an anger. That's why this station exists. You saw a vacuum somewhere in the media world that was missing in our community. And you decided it may cost me everything. Friends, a house, it may cost me security, but I'm going after that. I'm willing to die for it. Never trust a person who's not willing to die for what they are announcing. Because leadership is not about, again, finding something to live for. It's about finding something to die for. And I believe that there are leaders sitting in cars right now, stuck in traffic, hidden away under some career. Because they are afraid to step out and say, you know, I'm willing to die for what I see. And I'm going to speak to each one of you driving in your cars today, sitting in that traffic, that maybe the solution to the Bahamas is in your anger.
Exactly.
If you hate corruption, you may be the one who's supposed to go in there and bring integrity and character to that place. If you hate poverty and makes you mad, maybe you're supposed to be the one to start a poverty solution program to transform the Bahamas. If you hate to see young people in the street in gangs and in dilapidated houses, maybe you're supposed to start a youth program that's supposed to transform the world. Your anger becomes your conviction, which becomes your assignment and your call. And this is where leadership is born. It's usually born of anger. Who was more angry than Jesus Christ? Do you know the word compassion is the word for anger in Hebrew? Passion is the word in compassion. Passion means a desire that is so strong that you're willing to die. Compassion means is when you compact that passion so strongly that you no longer feel sympathy. Compassion is not sympathy.
You're compelled to do.
Sympathy means I'm sorry about what's happening to you. Compassion says I'm going to change it.
Yeah. Compelled to do.
He had compassion on people. And I believe this is what all the true leaders carry with them. And I hope that even in our House of Assembly today, in the Senate, and even in our judicial area, that maybe someone sitting in the car in those positions listening to me, I am here to tell you that maybe you've been elected as a politician, but I believe you were born to be a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And it may cause you a lot to step out and say, look, I am going to not just make a living, I'm going to make a difference. And you cannot make a difference by being safe. You know, in my books, I talk a lot about these 12 keys for leadership. And these 12 keys, I'm going to list them very quickly. First of all, leadership is about purpose. Number 2, passion. Number 3, compassion. Number 4, vision. Number 5, principles. Number 6, trust. Number 7, competence. Number 8, inspiration. Number 9, priority. Number 10, moral conviction.
Seriously,
Number 11,
big.
dedication to the cause. And number 12, the big one, character. These 12 components must be integrated in a person's life for them to become a leader that history will never forget. I don't think any of us should live just for a tombstone. Tombstones are necessary because a person has been so ineffective in life that we need to actually put a marker where we bury them to remind the world that they used to be here.
Mm-hmm.
You should live in a way that you don't need a tombstone. You don't need a marker to remind us you used to live here. You should live so effectively that we can't forget you whether we can find your grave or not.
Mm-hmm.
One of the greatest men in the world, we don't know where he's buried. And we can't forget him. We call his name every day almost. Moses. There's no record of where Moses is buried. And yet, we use Moses' laws to run our countries. We can't even find his tomb. There is no tomb. The Bible says God took Moses to the mountain and he was no more. You can live in a way that you don't need a monument. Does Mandela really need a grave? We don't care where he's buried. He's alive every day.
Yeah, in every
by
country.
his passion and his conviction, willingness to die.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to challenge our leaders today and those who are hidden in the classrooms like Mother Teresa, those who are hidden in the mechanic shops under a car, who really have a passion. They cry over things. Follow your anger.
Yeah.
And you'll discover yourself. I am angry. I found my anger when I was 14 years old, right here in Baintown, not far from here. I became angry at the oppression of colonialism as a teenager. I remember not being able to go to certain places when I was a kid. I remember there were theaters that didn't allow certain people to go to certain restaurants. And that got into my mind as a kid. I used to wonder why black people are poor, white people are rich. Why did they build the Collins Wall to separate us from the other parts of the world? Why were all the big houses on one side and the poor houses on the other side? And as a kid, that affected me, and I said, this is wrong. And today, that anger still is in me. That's why I have such a passionate dedication to helping people who are products of colonialism. Because oppression, to me, is the greatest scourge on human dignity. That's my anger. That's why I sit here today. This is why I travel to over 100 countries. This is why I go to third world nations. My vision is third world countries. And by the way, the third world is the largest world on earth.
Mm-hmm.
7 billion people. 5 billion of them are third world people. So there are more third world people on earth than any other peoples. And they're the ones who are still trying to recover from oppression. That includes the Caribbean.
So when we get back to where we are now, and I find this very, very enlightening, when we get back to the Bahamas, and I'm sorry I've not focused too big on the globe today. I'm on that, but I also want to see we can get a very, very specific message to those who are grappling with themselves.
Yes.
And trying to internalize who are they. You know, this is an age of discovery as well.
Yes.
And
the greatest one is self-discovery.
And, you know, you would imagine that in the next general elections in 2017, that will make 50 years since the black majority government came into being, 67, 2017. You're looking at a time now where we have people who want to start afresh. They say we need a paradigm shift. This is the beginning of that paradigm shift. But who is in the picture? It doesn't mean because you're not making the headlines today or because you've not yet been discovered by a political party or a church or a whatever that you have no say. I'm trying to find that person right now who has a passion, as Dr. Masbury was saying, for illiteracy in the Bahamas? Who's going to help to fix that? For the marginalized men,
Yes.
who's going to try to do something with that? For those who are hungry, I think we have a couple of people who are doing it right now. And Brother Walter Henschel is one of those persons who have this passion to fix that. But we need more.
Someone asked me the other day, how do you get into public life? I think this is really the bottom line question, because we have some great people in the shadows, educated, intelligent, passionate, angry. They want to do something to make the Bahamas great. They're tired of what they're seeing, perhaps, and they don't know what to do. And the question is, how do I get started? I think this is where your question is headed. How do I get out of that classroom like Mother Teresa? I think the answer is this. You got to serve your way to leadership.
Serve.
That means don't wait for someone to call you.
Jump in and
Begin to serve right now. She didn't try to say, I'm going to speak at the UN one day.
Yeah.
She started feeding one leper in the mud. And I want to encourage you, if you are sitting in traffic today, stuck, or maybe at home listening to me, and you're saying, you know, I just want to see a different world. I want to see a different Bahamas. I want to see a better community. Then stop waiting for someone to call you. Your anger is your call. Your conviction is your assignment. And I want to encourage you to start working right where you are. You know, I didn't begin where I am. You know, I'm invited to many nations to come and speak to top corporations and oil companies and governments and churches. But I started serving in Sunday school. I started teaching in little classrooms with no pay. I started advising people on how to become great. You start right where you are. Serve yourself into leadership. Don't wait for someone to call you. You know, if you begin to solve the problem in your environment, you become valuable. Can I put it this way? Your value is based on the problems you solve. And there are so many problems in the world today that your value should be found very easily.
Absolutely. And, you know, there are some right now. You talked about Moses earlier. We talk about Moses all the time. There are some who are going, but, you know, I hear you, Dr. Monroe. I hear what you're saying. Thank you for the inspiration. But, you know, I something like Moses. Moses told God, you know, well, you want me? You know, I don't even talk straight. I can't make a straight sentence. I can't do this. And how I don't know. I can't even read. I can't even count properly. I'm scared of microphones. Excuses.
Sure. And this is quite normal. I did the same thing. But, you know, what's good about life is that everybody is human. And whatever you were born to do will never leave you. It'll frustrate you.
Yeah.
And you will never feel adequate. But let me give you a principle to remember. Very important principle. Whatever you were born to do is not ahead of you. It's trapped within you. The Creator never put your future ahead of you. The future of everything is in the thing. The Creator did an awesome job. For example, the future of a seed is a forest. But the forest is not ahead of the seed. It's trapped in the seed. A fish was born to swim, but fish never go to swimming lessons. The swim is trapped in the fish.
Understood.
Birds were created to fly. Birds will never attend flight school. The flight is trapped in the bird. The Creator designed life in such a way that if you are afraid of what you were born to do, I've come to tell you, don't be afraid anymore. Your dream defines your capability. Whatever you were born to do is trapped on the inside of you. And this is why God ignores our excuses, because here's one of the greatest principles I ever learned in my life. This is my greatest principle I ever learned. Whatever God calls for, He provides for.
I believe
I'm going to say it again. Whatever God calls for, He provides for. That means whatever He demands from you, He's already put in you.
Yeah.
So your passion and your purpose is a revelation of your potential.
But doesn't all this come down to the believability factor, what you believe.
Absolutely.
I mean, doesn't it come down to that? Because you're talking, it makes sense to those of us who may have an open attitude, an open mind, and a grounding in some kind of a force, some kind of creator. There are many people who have ignored those parts of the brought-up seed, behaving the word here. In other words, we have gone off to school, we've learned new ways and new means. We're trapped in the mindset of atheists and agnostics and evolutionists and God knows what else. And we don't have that believability factor. We're not grounded in something to believe that these things are real, that we are absolutely born with what we're supposed to do in us. Yes. And people don't really think like that in normal ways. And everyday people just don't think like that. This is almost deep thinking, like, let us go inside ourselves and find out what's good. People just basically just keep going with what the currents are. This is what is happening here. Let me see how I can adjust to that. Let me see how I can adjust to this. So what you're saying is kind of like...
but this is why I teach what I teach. Mm-hmm. That's exactly why I teach what I teach. Now, let me say something. If you're an atheist, an agnostic, it doesn't matter. Whatever God put in you is still in you. Mm. So your belief doesn't cancel your capabilities.
I agree with that.
I went to Egypt. My wife and I went to Egypt a couple of times. But my first trip to Egypt changed my life because we flew from Israel to Egypt, from Tel Aviv to Cairo, came off the airplane, and it was an amazing experience to be in Cairo. I mean, it's a great experience.
Yeah, I was there before. So
and we went to the pyramids. Mm-hmm. And it was during the year that they just discovered King Tut's tomb, you know, the Egyptian king. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And my driver took us out there to the pyramids in the desert, beautiful environment. Mm-hmm. And there were these historic pyramids in front of me. We went to the largest one. And in that pyramid, which is a tomb, actually, of a pharaoh, they had a big, massive room under the tomb. Mm-hmm. And they had on display all of the artifacts from the King Tut. Mm-hmm. And in one of those, you know, artifacts, we saw his chariot. We saw his golden slippers. Mm-hmm. They showed the rings here on his finger. Mm-hmm. They showed, you know, his robe that was in the pieces of it that were left. Mm-hmm. I mean, preserved stuff, 4,000 years old. Mm-hmm. And then there was a little glass case. In this glass case was a lump of seeds. And I said to my guide, I said, what is this? He said, these were seeds that were found in the tomb of King Tut. I said, now, wait a minute. You found seeds that are over 3,000 years old. He said, yes. He said, they were petrified by the heat buried deep in the earth in the desert, which actually preserves everything. That's why the body is so preserved when they embalm the body, because of the climate under the ground in the desert. So I said, are you telling me these seeds are over 4,000 years old? He said, yes. I said, then are they still capable of germination? He said, I'll tell you a story we just found out. We shipped some of the seeds to Israel, and the scientists took those seeds and put them back in the environment of growth and crossbred them with maize and corn, and they produced the largest corn and maize in Israel today. 4,000-year-old seeds. I'm sitting there in the pyramid in Egypt listening to this man. Suddenly, I realized I was getting a revelation about life. No matter how old you are, no matter how long you've been hidden away, no matter what you believe about yourself, once you get back in the right environment, key, what's on the inside of you still comes out. So you may be 70 years old today and still got your passion and your dream. And I'm telling you on this program today that whatever you were born to do is still trapped inside of you at 70 years old. It doesn't matter how lost you've been in life, no matter how many times you've failed. Maybe you are a drug addict. Maybe you failed in your marriage. Maybe you were divorced 5 times. It doesn't matter. That never destroys what you were born to do. If you're an atheist, agnostic, a homosexual, lesbian, or whatever, Buddhist, it doesn't matter. Whatever God put in you is still in you. If you don't believe in God, the seed still carries the capacity. Putting yourself back in the right environment is the key. And this is what we teach. I try to help people to understand that if you feed the seed the right minerals and put it in the right moisture and put it in the right soil, what was dead for 4,000 years
comes to life.
Will still come back to life. So there's a leader trapped inside of you in the traffic right now. And this program, hard copy, is challenging you today. And you may even be buried under, not a pyramid, but under a career. And you hate your job. Why? Because your job is not what you were born to do. It's like a pyramid.
Yeah, no satisfaction.
Hiding you. You're buried in the desert of your vocation. And maybe this one program was sent into your car for this reason, that you are still full of capacity. You might need to change the books you read. You might need to change the friends you are with. You might need to change the places you go, because those environments are not helping your seed to germinate. And this is why it's important to listen to programs like this to help feed your vision, to stimulate your hidden dreams, to bring back the leader trapped on the inside. Our country, we don't need people who are looking for positions. We need people who are looking for dispositions. People who want to find themselves, not find followers. When you discover the vision and the passion that you were born to fulfill, then you become attractive to others. And, you know, I'm thinking about my country now. Yesterday, there was a vote in Parliament, and everyone's kind of concerned about that vote, and they're wondering what's going to happen to the future. But first of all, I want to say that what has happened has happened. And I, again, want to say that I sympathize with the governments, and I use the plural word, all governments of the Bahamas. For the past 40 years, and maybe even beyond that, the Bahamas has been suffering from a tumor that was growing within our community called gaming. We call it all kind of names. Numbers, we call it gaming, we call it
web
gambling.
shop, all kind of stuff,
Well, web shop came later because the web shop became another environment for it. But the spirit of it has been with us for a long time. But we allowed this tumor to become so big that cutting it out would destroy the body called the Bahamas, as I mentioned yesterday. And so I think I want to commend all the governments for attempting to do something about it. The previous administration tried to do something about it. This administration is trying to do something about it. And I admire that, because I think they realize that cutting it out may be difficult. So my admonishing my people in my country again to say, look, this is with us now. And I guess the Senate may probably just put a rubber stamp on it.
Absolutely.
And they'll probably come into law. So I don't feel bad about none of this. Nothing phases me, because I believe that there's a solution to any problem that emerges. This was an attempt to a solution for a problem. The government tried to bring solution to a problem.
27, 7, and 5 abstain.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Now, the problems that this might produce is what we got to study now.
We're at a different level now.
There's only one residue concern that I really am struggling with, and that is the one I mentioned last year concerning the gaming proposition. And that is, I'm still concerned about the fact that a small group of people may be having so much power. And again, I'm not discussing the issue of equality of opportunity. I'm not discussing the issue of, you know, everyone having access to, you know,
casinos,
business, and you know, I'm talking about something different. I'm talking about, is there any possibility, and I hope there isn't, but is there any possibility that some of the motivation for pursuing this bill to bring it into law may possibly be motivated by an obligation someone may have had to someone who assisted them in the past? I'm just hoping that's not true, because I believe that if we got some smart business young people here, and some of the people involved in this industry are very intelligent, and I respect their intelligence. They're very sharp people. But my hope is that there's no potential corruption involved in this. And the Prime Minister states that there will be a body coming here to investigate the Bahamas for corruption and to make sure that we are fulfilling international standards. My hope is that this was purely an attempt to solve a problem, not to pay a debt.
That's what your thoughts are. You're hoping
that's my concern.
Many people have that concern.
If this process was to solve the tumor problem, then I commend the government. But if there's any piece of this solution process
to pay a debt,
to someone that you feel you owe, we are in danger, because you can't afford to have people with a lot of money being able to dictate or influence who emerges to the top in our country. Again, this is why we need some transparency issues dealt with.
Absolutely.
We need to deal with election financing, so that we do not have the problem that we have in the past. You know, cities like Chicago had issues where a similar industry became so powerful that they even bought the police commissioner.
Absolutely.
They bought politicians. They bought
ran the
senators.
show.
So they basically had a shadow government because of the power they had. The Bahamas is too small for that. And so I'm just going to believe and hope that this was purely an attempt to solve a problem. I listened to the Prime Minister's speech very carefully yesterday, every word, and I was listening to the passion he had at different points, and I was impressed by his passion. But I just want to make sure it's out there that everyone sitting in that house who voted or didn't vote for the bill, that they could say without a shadow of a doubt that there was no sense of obligation or sense of debt to anyone that would have motivated them to pursue this solution. That's my concern.
And I believe that a lot of people share that concern, and a lot of people did call me today, and they said they listened to you with great interest in your sympathies for governments
Yes.
On this particular matter. And they had given expression that they too are hoping that this is all just to solve a problem that got out of hand, because successive governments and we the people never did anything about it.
Right.
But there was also this reservation that some had too.
Yeah.
That, boy, we're hoping and praying that that's all there is to it, because it's been great talk. And you know this, that people have said that, well, you know, these guys sold out to the numbers man, this particular crew, and that they did these things because they were paying off a debt from an election campaign. I would hate to believe that our people are that myopic, that small, that they would put themselves and the whole country in jeopardy to have to pay back something along those lines.
Do you know what they said? They said they made provisions, Steve, for those who may become addicted to this behavior. But let me say that there may be something else that they may need to include in the process. And this is very important, and no one talked about this. They say that that part of the proceeds from the revenue from gaming will be assigned to rehabilitation of those who are addicts. Very honorable suggestion.
Yeah.
How about this? Is there any portion of the revenue assigned to educating people that work is better than gaming? In other words,
that part is left to the church.
Shouldn't be left to the church.
Show.
It shouldn't be left to the church.
I agree with you, but that part is left. That's your assignment now.
The government is saying, okay, in case we get some fallout, we're going to finance the rehabilitation of people. I think there should be on the other end that as a collective community, and I mean all of us, the government, the church, the business world, the communities, civic leadership, we should focus on educating people to say, look, these are the dangers of this activity. You could lose your marriage, you could lose your house, you could lose your entire investment in life if you're not able to manage this. And secondly, the work ethic is more important than chance. There needs to be an educational program also. You know, it's amazing how we sell alcohol. I have never seen an alcohol ad in any magazine or any billboard where they show the drunkard under the bridge. They actually advertise alcohol with the guy with the bow tie with a beautiful girl on his hand. Maybe there should be two ads. One that shows the guy with the bow tie and the beautiful girl holding a glass of liquor, and another ad right next to it showing a guy under the bridge in a cardboard box saying,
almost like,
this is a possibility.
Almost like before and after.
Absolutely. So
you know, here we are before, we look all debonair, and 10 years later, here we are under the bridge, sleeping in a cardboard box, as Georgie Caper would say, with big brown rats running around you.
Yeah. So that is an element that I think that needs to be magnified.
But who's going to take up that mantle? You see, that's the whole point. And that may also be a passion that somebody has.
Yes.
To discover themselves as the leader in this country.
Absolutely.
And to go and do it. I mean, that is a wonderful idea. What about a marketing campaign that shows the vices of these things? Nobody wants to do that, Dr. Monroe, because everybody wants to be on the good side where the monies are flowing. And so you see money is a very, very powerful thing. In fact, there's a verse that talks about money answering all things. I believe a lot of people...
But also it's the root of all evil.
It's the root of all evil. People forget that part of it. But this money thing... is where people want to be a part of, and they want to hang out around that so that some of that can rub off on them. And people are just basically, in many regards, thinking very selfishly these days in the Bahamas.
You know, I
suppose throughout the world, but here, at home, for sure.
Similar story. I was in Amsterdam, where marijuana is legal. And the guy that invited me to speak had a massive organization, and his organization dealt with drug addicts. And of course, you know, he said that when they legalized marijuana, they had no idea that 12 and 13-year-olds would become addicts. The school dropout rate would quadruple. And by the time a person is 17 or 18, they are no good to society in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And his organization was trying to salvage these kids from the street at age 14. It's illegal to smoke marijuana at age 14 and 13 in Amsterdam, but most of his cases were that age. So, you know, are we going to have kids who are 14-year-old? I mean, even though we say that, you know, the age is 18.
Right.
I mean,
who's to say?
Who's going to police that?
I thought she was 14. She looks so big and mature.
So, again, I think we need to educate on both sides now. And don't leave it up to the church, because all of us made this decision if you are the government. And so we need to say to people, okay, you are free to do this. All things are permissible.
Right.
But don't become mastered by anything.
Yeah.
And
Pretty much
the great wisdom of Paul.
Yeah.
And
the other thing is that, you know, you've got to always remember there are consequences.
Absolutely.
To many things.
That's the
point.
So,
you know, I was about to tell you that, and I'm going to get to some calls on the line. I see people are already starting to call. They want to talk now. But I was reading something that a friend of mine sent me online about the minute this bill was passed, 25 yes and 7 no and 5 persons were absent, and we haven't analyzed yet who was there and who didn't do what. But the point is this. A friend of mine sent me something that says that, you know, now that we're talking gambling, let's look at the reality. It's just pretty much as we are now doing. Now, we're beyond this campaign where it can't happen. It's happening.
Right.
It's been passed in the lower house.
Sure.
It's going to the upper house. In a minute, it'll go for signature, and it'll be law.
Right.
Now, this is the deal. But the fellow who sent me this says, you know, look, read this. And it says that many persons who are addicts in Las Vegas, the same place you talked about yesterday where we talked about the light side and the dark side, many of those persons, up to about 40% of them, who are addicts, who are attending clinics and that kind of stuff because of this addiction to gambling, these are senior people, senior citizens.
Yes.
That they have been so caught up with this compulsion to gamble that they just can't do without it. So many of them move from places like Florida and all over the United States to live in Nevada, just so that they can be close to all the bright lights and what seems to be plenty of money happening somewhere.
Yes.
And they have a tremendous problem with persons who are trying to get that rehabilitation. I suppose the person sent it to me because they heard this speech too, as you did and I did, about the kind of funding that would be made available for those persons who become addicts, and the state will have to look after them and all that.
Sure.
And I suppose it's the responsible thing to do if you're going to be a gambling place.
Yes.
But the information I read was kind of like very depressing. It was like, you know, do we want to do this like this? Have we weighed the consequences? A question you asked some time ago.
That's always my question.
Have we weighed the consequences? Because there will be fallout. There will be
My
repercussions.
concern too, Steve, is that the size of our country is frightening to me. We're not a big country. If, let's say, if 25% of the people who gamble in the Bahamas become addicts, that's a massive amount of people, comparatively speaking. I had an opportunity to meet one of the most famous actors in Hollywood, one you know well, Denzel Washington. Denzel is a black actor. We know how famous he is. And I got to meet him at an event where I was a guest, and we were chatting. And he was telling a story to a group of us, and he said, you know, he's a multi-millionaire movie star. He said that one day one of his friends told him that he's going to go to a casino and wanted to come. He said, okay, he went. You know, he got millions of dollars. He said, you know, he went, he played some of the games, played crap, played, you know, whatever it was, and he started losing money. And he lost about $250,000 that night, he said. And he went back to his hotel room. He thought about it. All of a sudden, he had an urge to go win his money back. So the next night, he went downstairs to the hotel, went back, because he wanted to get his money back. And he played another $500,000. He lost it. He went back to his room, and he says, you know, they got over $750,000 of my money. I want to get my money back. So he went back the third night to try and win his money back. And Dancer said in 3 days, he realized, I'm becoming an addict. So he said, tell you what, I'm going to lose the $1 million that they took, but they ain't going to never see me back here again. And he said he stopped gambling that day. Now, this man got millions to throw away.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I ain't never going back to a gambling house again. So what about the woman who makes $250 a week at a hotel? And they advertise all along the street, try your luck.
This may be your lucky day.
This is a Bahamian dream. And the woman says, you know, I'll just use $20. You know, when you compare $250 and you take $20 out of it, that's groceries for your kids. You only need enough of them to do that. And we got ourselves a problem. Again, I am sure that...
But we got social services. They can go there.
Well, no, that's another issue.
They can go there. I'm telling you deliberately. They can go there. I mean, you know, we got the welfare department.
Social service today is strapped.
Of course, they're overtaxed.
Absolutely.
Being facetious there, but
and again,
we're
not wanting to talk here about all this negative stuff. But what I'm saying is, here's a man who had the money to gamble with, but he made a decision that this is not a good idea. This is what I call starving the tumor. Yeah. I think I want to encourage all of the church leaders, all of the civic leaders, and maybe the politicians to go into their neighborhoods now and call meetings with their people and say, look, we had to solve this problem. Here's how we chose to solve it. But here's what we want to encourage you not to do. Do not destroy your families. Do not destroy your marriages. Do not sell your children's clothing and shoes for hope in this thing. As a politician, I want to be responsible for my constituents.
But that would sound like a contradiction, though, Dr.
That's
Monroe.
exactly why we need to do it.
It's a contradiction.
It has to be a contradiction.
They all just went and voted, most of them just voted
but
for
basically, they were... So you could
party
say
lines,
that they were solving problems for, I guess, certain groups of people, the gamblers and those who benefit from it. But again, I'm talking about being responsible leaders. You should and must tell the whole story. And we should be a part of the solution. And I see the day coming when they're going to need to put in classroom curriculum information about gaming in the Bahamas, because it's going to become such a problem among young people.
Well, I hope they put in the Constitution first, so that we can know what this country is really all about. And I have actually a question. Does what has happened just recently in the Parliament, though we have all considered that these guys did what they did to save a bad situation as a last resort, and perhaps was the only move they could make, does it line up with where we are as this nation with these kind of virtues and principles that we espouse in our Constitution? I mean, doesn't the whole body of this thing change in a way from a perception point of view of those persons who come into our country?
I think that's the part that makes me sad. The saddest part of this whole process is I go around the world, tell people how wonderful the Bahamas is, and now they will probably be told that we are a gambling mecca, which doesn't make me happy. I think we need to be cautious about that. You know, are we solving a problem or are we creating a reputation?
Well, we're going to soon have carnival too.
Well, I'm afraid to even talk about carnival, because the word carnival is from the word carnal, which means flesh.
Well, that's what carnival is, flesh.
And that's the point I'm making. So carnival is really the celebration of flesh. I've been to Brazil, When they had carnival, I was afraid to go near that town, Rio de Janeiro. I mean, 2 million in the street, and then most of them naked. I tell a guy, fly me out of here quick. Trinidad, I've been in Trinidad so many times, and I said to myself, will this ever be in my country? The celebration of flesh. Now, I understand that they are reconsidering it, whether it should be closely tied to John Canoe, which I think is more of an artistic expression than it is celebrating of flesh. But I don't want to have a carnal country. I would like to have an artistic country.
Well, I've got to ask you another question, Dr. Miles Monroe. Well, is there any issue that would make Dr. Miles Monroe angry enough to pivot, to recalibrate, to bring out that being down in you, that to bring out that Matthias Monroe in you, the most handsome man in the Bahamas, Matthias Monroe, my good buddy, your dad. Is there something that would make Dr. Miles Monroe angry enough? You got my point. Okay, answer the question.
This is not fair on the air.
Is there something?
Let me answer it this way. You will know when my anger has reached the peak.
I see.
Something might happen. But I think you understand what I'm saying.
I do.
Let me just say this before we go to a break. I believe the most important thing in a nation is a national vision. And a national vision disciplines the country. And leadership is a product of vision. So every nation must have a sense of destiny. And we don't talk about this much. What is the role of the Bahamas in the world of nations? Has anyone ever answered that question?
No.
Second statement.
But
Destiny is the ultimate vision of a country. Do we have an ultimate vision of what we see the Bahamas as being in the community of nations? Another question. Do we have a picture of the Bahamas as a future in the world of communities? In other words, is there a distinction as a country that makes us unique in the community of nations? Another question. Does our Constitution reflect the framework for pursuing a national vision? In other words, the purpose for government is to lead the people to the fulfillment of a national vision.
Absolutely.
And if that vision is clear, it begins to inform all other decisions. When we were landing in Indonesia last week, the plane's about to land, the stewardess says, just a reminder, anyone entering the country with drugs goes to jail for 18 years. That was an announcement in the aircraft. Then she said, and no littering in Singapore and in Indonesia. So you walk out of the aircraft and you go into the street and you could eat off the streets. No drugs in the country. So I'm talking to my host and I said, how did your country become so clean and the crime rate is so low? He said, because our leader gave us a national vision. And all of us believe in the vision as a country. There are no drug dealers in this nation. They got millions of people, not 360,000. Now, they don't waste their time trying to fight crime. They use their energy pursuing vision. So, national vision is more important than government. National vision is supposed to be the reason for government. The government exists for the purpose of the vision. Therefore, government leaders are always temporary, but national vision is permanent.
Serious.
And that means national vision must be greater than the government. Governments are transient. The vision is what actually makes the government legitimate. Without a national vision, we hire people to do nothing.
So national vision is what we are in pursuit of, and it's been that way from the time that we started the nation.
This is my point. You know, if I was to go into politics and had the privilege of leading the Bahamas, not that I am, but if I had the privilege, my first focus would be bringing a collective minds together to craft a national vision of the Bahamas that could last for 100 years.
You like the Chinese.
And to place that before the people, and it takes leadership to sell it. Leadership is about convincing people about the future that they want and inspire them to want to go there. And I believe that until we have a clear national vision, we'll constantly be dealing with vices.
Yeah. We're going to talk more about that. Let me take these calls and run to the break. Hard copy, how are you? Good afternoon.
Hi, how are you doing today?
Thank you very much for holding. Yes, we're listening to you, sir.
Hi, Mr. McKinney. To your guest, Dr. Monroe.
Hello, how you doing?
Everything's good?
Excellent, sir.
All right. Well, my name is J.D. Miller. 2 years ago, Dr. Monroe, I was honored at your church with the Real Men's Empowerment Award. I don't know if you remember me.
Yes, yes. Congratulations. Congratulations.
At the time. And I really called today because you talked about being angry. And it made me remember my purpose in coming home. You know, when I was 10 years old, my mother used to take me around Taylor Street. And I spent most of my young life there after school up until I was 16. And at 10 years old, I saw so many things going on around me. I saw the poverty, I saw the crime, I saw, you know, people in clapboard houses, and I told myself that when I got old enough, I would help people. I left the Bahamas when I was 16 years old, went to the U.S., started helping out Miami-Dade communities, went to Tampa, started helping out communities in Tampa, started helping out disabled kids. And at age 25, God came in my spirit one night and said, Jaden, come home. I left the U.S., gave up my green card, gave up my freedom, gave up my apartment, gave up my car, and came home. And I tried my best to come home and make a difference. And I was so angry at what was going on at home. And I told myself I had to come home. And for the past 4 years, I've been working diligently, trying to bring people together, trying to help young men, help young women, help young kids. I started my own scholarship, raising my own money, my hard-earned money, to give $1,000 to a child every year. And I'm just so happy to hear Dr. Monroe on the show. I usually don't call talk shows at all, but I decided I had to call today to talk about my message and talk about why I came home. And we need to try to bring a lot of leaders together to talk and step up to the plate.
Absolutely, and you're a great example, I can tell you, because there are many people who are doing things who don't want to, but there's somewhere where they're not talking up, and we can build a nation in a vacuum. And we hear from people like you, and if we know what you're doing, there's great support and great inspiration to people.
Yes, sir. And, you know, one thing, I attended Dr. Monroe's church in 2007, 2013. There's one thing I'll never forget that he said. He said, if you want to be the first, you have to become a slave to your gift. And I became a slave to my gift, and now I've just continued to do it. And I know at some point things are going to change in this country, but it's going to take more than me. It's going to take more than Dr. Monroe. A collective group of people have to come together to make this difference happen.
Wow.
Appreciate it. Powerful.
Oh, you made my day, son. God bless you.
Thank you very much for your call.
Thanks.
Thank you very
and
much.
he's correct. See, and again, that's another Mother Teresa spirit where, you know, you don't wait for someone to call you. You go into action.
Yeah.
No one called me into what I'm doing. You know, I was discovered. And this is the way life is. Diamonds are made in secret, and they are discovered after they're finished.
Yeah.
And they're worth nothing until they are finished. And so he's a diamond, and buried under the community. And I believe the day will come and he will be in the House of Assembly with the right spirit, you know, passionately angry at poverty. And he's going to be the kind of person who would pursue policies.
And it's worthwhile because we have heard for umpteen years about the urban renewal, and I'm not hitting Christie's idea of it, but this urban renewal is not synonymous with Christie. Urban renewal has been around.
Overpainting.
Yes.
Does the Bahamas look like in 2050?
Can we imagine it?
What does the Bahamas look like in 2075? Do we have anyone that can give us a picture? Because that, to me, is what leadership is about. Leadership is about being able to define the future so the present has hope.
Being able to define the future so the present has hope. And we need to be hopeful.
Nothing is more depressing than being able to see the present. And that's why you should never trust your eyes when you are a leader. You trust your vision. Because your vision and your eyes are completely different. Your eyes show you what is. Your vision shows you what could be.